I, some years ago, did a film which I'm sure is one of your favourites and everyone listening, The Tooth Fairy, starring myself and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's a masterclass of acting, and we stayed in touch. I'm being marginally ironic. We stayed in touch, and we're gym buddies, is the truth. I like to go in the gym and just really push Dwayne because he doesn't have the discipline. But if I'm there, I can really, get him to just do a little bit extra. And so he was in London. He was filming one of the Fast and the Furious films, and he was watching Channel 4, and he never misses Hollyoaks. It had finished, and a documentary came on about a family of wrestlers from Norwich, England. And I'd like you to just picture that scene for a second. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's in a hotel room, he's eating the shortbread, he's ironing his shirt for the next day, and on a little fold-down iron, and he's watching a documentary about a family of wrestlers from Norwich. And he is from a family of wrestlers, and I think he kind of saw a lot of parallels with his own life, and ended up sort of reaching out to them and becoming involved in their lives. And somewhere down the road, realised this was perhaps an interesting film idea, because it's about this brother and sister who sort of are wrestlers and go off and compete to try and get into WWE, which is the big leagues for wrestlers. And so I think he thought this could make a good film. Which English people do I know? There's only one. It's the Merch Man. I'll give him a bell, see if he wants to make a film. I did. Off we went.
What was most helpful in your research? Did you get to meet the real family during production?
Well, I have no knowledge or understanding or particular interest about wrestling, and it was very important to me that we make a film which you could enjoy without any knowledge or caring about wrestling at all. And so I rest assured you do not need to like that thing, which a lot of people find very weird and esoteric, to enjoy the film. And so I needed to understand it because I needed to understand why the family cared so much about it and what the hell was going on. And in a way, what I loved was, the reason the story was appealing to me was because this family loved this thing. In the way that Billy Elliot loves ballet, but you don't need to like ballet to enjoy Billy Elliot. You don't really need to like boxing to enjoy Rocky, because it's really just about a man trying to make it, right? And it's the same with this. And so, but I needed to understand it, and it's very complicated. There's all these levels of reality. There's all these insider terms like baby face and heel and kayfabe and all this terminology. And so the family were very helpful. They told me, they explained how it worked. They talked to me very honestly about their own lives, about the mistakes they'd made. The father, Ricky, talked about how I was in and out of prison, 3 times before I was 21. And his wife, Julia's like, mainly violence, because to them, that's just the way they speak. And they were very helpful. They never said there was no part of their lives that I couldn't intrude on or ask them about. So they were very helpful.
And why was Florence Pugh the right person to tackle Paige, so to speak?
Well, it was very hard to cast that role of Paige because you needed a great actress, you needed a young actress, and so often with young actresses they're also relatively inexperienced, but you needed someone who was willing to do the physical running and jumping and falling over of wrestling. They needed to be able to do drama and humour, and they needed to be convincing as this working class person, but they also needed to carry our movie on their shoulders, and they needed to have the sort of star power that the real life Paige has, which is why she's become a big star in that world. So it was a tall order, and I must have seen or met with every actress under the age of 25 in this country. I mean, I just saw everybody because it was really tough to find someone. And in the end, Florence just ticked all those boxes. And I met loads of really great people, but it was just very hard to find that right person. And she was able to do everything, and also had great chemistry with Jack Lowden, who plays her brother in the film. And so she was sort of a no-brainer, really. And she threw herself into it. She was gung-ho. She went to America to learn to wrestle. She, on her 5th day of filming, had to walk out in front of 20,000 wrestling fans in the Staples Center in LA and recreate a match that the real girl had fought some years before. So she had nerves of steel. It was kind of extraordinary.
And the rest of the cast are absolutely brilliant. I mean, you've got Nick Frost, Lena Headey, Jack Lowden. What was the atmosphere like on set with the whole family together?
They're great. They're all lovely people. They bonded well as a family. We met up for a few days beforehand, just so they could all hang out with each other and kind of feel relaxed and feel, because families just have a very comfortable dynamic, particularly this family, because this family also in real life work together and live together, because they all wrestle, mum, dad, all the kids. And so that was very important. And there's a sequence in which they have a sort of family dinner in which I also played a minor role as a sort of visiting in-law, and that was almost impossible to get through because I was trying to improvise to make them laugh, they were trying to improvise to make me laugh, and so it was just I'm going to use the word, it was a show.
And I believe you filmed in Paige's hometown in Norfolk.
Yes.
Can you tell us about filming there, and if you enjoyed the locale as well during filming?
Well, we went to film in Norwich, where she's from. We did as much as we could there, just because of the logistics of filming. We couldn't do everything there, but the family came down and they were very helpful in terms of both sort of training some of our performers, to, shaping some of the way they perform. Some of the family doubled for some of the actors, for the more adventurous running and jumping. We sort of took over Norwich City Centre, and it was kind of important to me that we tried to make it feel authentic, and sort of shoot in the real locations. But Norwich is almost too pretty a place for the kind of story that we were telling, really, because they come from a much sort of grittier part of Norwich. So, if the reason you go to see movies is to see beautiful cathedrals, you're not going to see much of Norwich Cathedral. Sorry about that, guys. I know that's a big deal breaker for a lot of people, but there's not a lot of beautiful shots of the cathedral. Sorry, deal with it.
And now I saw that you recorded the score with Graham Coxon and The Cure's Jason Cooper. How would you describe your musical vision for the film?
Well, the family themselves are very, like I say, they're very gritty. The way they have a very unique look that's very kind of gothy and punky and rock and roll. And part of Paige's raison d'etre is that she's this sort of outsider figure. She was in both real life and that's sort of her wrestling persona as well. And so, to me, the idea of having a score that was too beautiful or too orchestrated or lots of strings and kind of, that seemed wrong. And I thought, well, they're also a little bit out of time, that they're not, they kind of feel almost like they're a hangover from the 80s or something. And so it seemed weird to me to have like a really cool sort of electronica score so it was very tricky. And so it just seemed to me that the sound of it should feel a bit punkier and a little bit kind of guitar-y and not too orchestrated and kind of rough around the edges. And actually what's interesting is because when you make a film, you often will use existing scores from other movies while you're cutting just to give a flavour. And it's very hard to find soundtracks which have that sound. You'd assume that you hear it a lot more, but actually there aren't that many soundtracks with that kind of sound. And so it was really tricky. But so Graham Coxon of Blur, who is a real punk fan, did a lot of the guitar work and just gave it this nice kind of sort of rough, sort of punky home. I wanted it to feel DIY, I wanted it to feel like homemade, and that's sort of what the family's like. They kind of make their own costumes and they build the ring themselves, and I wanted the music to feel much like punk, kind of something that you just did in your garage.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey You Guys!